I went home and told my wife we were going. Went and told my church it was January, I'm leaving in May. The funny part of it is I still had some second thoughts. And if it wasn't for Aaron really pushing me, like, you know, he would ask me, well, why wouldn't you want to go plant a church? And I'd go, because I don't want to set up and tear down chairs and do all the stuff that, you know, and he goes, oh, poor you. He would tease me. That's my love language. So you don't want to go because you don't want to set up chairs. And so my response was, well, then you come and you can set up chairs too. And he's like, all right. And I go, are you serious? And so Aaron played a huge part in my willingness to come here. I started to fly down after church on Sunday to do a Bible study at the Grubbs house and then fly back on Monday morning and work all week.
We were really poor. I mean, we had no money. We couldn't afford to fly me and Jim. Him and Aaron would fly over and meet with Lydia and Jim, and just different doors started to open.
And so as the time got shorter, I mean, they had this big goodbye for me and my wife, and you know, we were only asking for 3 months' salary. $30,000 wasn't that much, but it wasn't coming in. And here's the deal. Every week I would call, did the business deal go through? And he'd say, nope. And I don't know, Jim, it's held up.
It was obvious to me that God wanted us to come here. Even though the money wasn't there, it was like, okay, God wants this to happen.
I went and told Jim and Lydia Grubb, pray for this to happen. They were like, on it. This deal needs to close.
And now what I didn't know is that it was not just Jim that was praying about it. It was Jim and another person who was going with them, and then and I believe it was 2 families in Post Falls. They were praying constantly. And by virtue of just their prayers, and I really believe this is true, because that deal could have fell apart in a million ways. The seller of the business he fired his attorneys because they were not being truthful with him. And he closed the deal, which was almost a $30 million deal, without attorneys. The closing was miraculous by itself.
Well, about 2 weeks before we were supposed to come, I get the phone call, and Roy says, Jim, you won't believe it. It went through. Come and get your money.
I was excited about it. Because it's, I was a little nervous and scared because I think I wasn't afraid of the money part of it. It was more of, what's this gonna mean for my kids?
The deal finally closes, and I called Jim, and I said, well, Jim, you can come and get your check. In fact, why don't you play golf with me, and I'll give you a check. Jim, being Jim, says, oh, I'm so grateful, because he goes, my truck's packed. I'm like, in 2 days, I'm leaving, and I have no money. And I said, wow, isn't that amazing? I mean, God is really timely, isn't he? And then Jim goes, yes, he is. And if you could do 30,000, you could do 50,000. And I laughed. I go, you're right, I can do 50,000. And so we went and played golf, and I gave him the 50,000. My wife, Linda, was part of that. And we always said, you know, that's the best investment we've ever made, was in Real Life Ministries and Jim.
You know, about a month before we moved down here, I got a phone call from a guy named Jim Harris. Now, Jimmy Harris is my brother-in-law, my wife's brother. And Jimmy had grown up in my youth group. when he was younger. And then when I was in Oregon City, he was a sponsor, kind of a volunteer leader in my youth ministry, and decided that he wanted to go to Bible college. So he actually moved to Cincinnati, Ohio to be in Bible college, and he met his wife, Cassie, there.
First time I heard about Real Life Ministries was over Christmas vacation, my senior year of Bible college. I went home with Jimmy to visit his family and meet his family. We were engaged. And I met his brother-in-law, who is Jim Putman. And he was just a larger-than-life person. And he was saying, you guys are going to have to come out to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm planting a church there. We're going to launch this fall. And I remember thinking, where's Coeur d'Alene? Where's Idaho? I was from Ohio, and I had to brush up on my geography a little bit. And I thought, well, yeah, maybe. And then Jim kept talking to Jimmy during that period of time.
And Jim and I had worked in a youth ministry together. When I was 18, I went out and helped him with his youth ministry in Oregon City. And when I was there, I got to see Jim's vision for empowering and leading. And I thought this church is going to be special. We
had let everybody know that we were going to North Idaho, and Jimmy calls and he says, hey, just want to let you know that my wife and I, we're graduating, and we're going to actually drive over there and help you plant that church. Now, at the time, I was almost panicked because the money hadn't come in, and I was just rewinding in my mind the conversations I had with Jimmy to go, does Jimmy think I can pay him to come over there to plant the church? Because we got 3 months' salary and there's already 2 of us. And I don't know how that's even possible. And I said, Jimmy, I don't know if I promised you something, or did I say something that would say, we were going to bring you over and hire you out of Bible college with your wife? And he said, no, we're going to drive over there. We're going to volunteer. We're going to get secular jobs, and we're going to volunteer. And Jimmy had learned to play guitar while he was in Oregon City before he went to Bible college. And up until that point, we had nobody that was doing music, or we had great singers. Kelly is an amazing singer, and we had some others that were great singers too, but we had no music ability as far as playing was concerned, other than Aaron, who was going to be our youth and small groups. And I, on the one side, was super happy, but I was also really humbled that he would come. And it was just another confirmation that God was really drawing people here to do something that maybe was bigger than we thought. Aaron and I lived with the Grubbs for a little bit, and we started immediately shepherding people and calling people that had been coming to the groups, why I'd been flying over here on Sunday evenings in the kind of the ramp up in March, April, and May.
They had asked us to put together a meeting of anybody who was interested, and so we ended up having 26 people in my little house, and we put them on the top rung, and they spoke from the stairway, and we had people from Montana, and people from Sandpoint, and people from Grangeville, and people from interested people in the area.
The invitation was to come to a introductory meeting for a potential church plant with Jim Putman and Aaron Couch, and it was Super Bowl Sunday, right during the middle of the Super Bowl, and I felt like God was calling me out, that he was challenging me to come to this meeting because I should be there, and because it was the Super Bowl, which is a big deal to me. Football is a big deal. I just knew we had to be there, and that was the first time we met everybody. Jim at the meeting vision cast what he wanted for the church, and it was the first time I was ever around Jim. I knew Aaron before because Libby, Montana, and Sandpoint, we do youth things together. But Jim he came in, and it's a living room, right? And there's a bunch of church people sitting around the living room, very informal. And I had no idea what to expect. And here comes Jim, and he is at DEFCON 1. And he's in 5th gear, whatever metaphor you could come up with, that at the speed of which and the passion that this guy had. What he vision cast, I knew that I had never seen it before. Before I wanted to commit, because the way Jim talks, he draws a line in the sand. You're either going to cross the line or forget about it. You're either with us or against us. And so I thought, I'm going to have to make a commitment to this guy immediately. So I asked him. I said, your dad was a church planter. He moved around. Or what's your status in the Coeur d'Alene Post Falls area? And he made a case that this was going to be home. And so I said, okay. I had no idea what I was signing up for at that moment mentally, but I signed up, and here we are. One of the things that Jim did was bring somebody. He brought Aaron, and I thought that was really smart. And now in church planting, that's the norm. One guy by himself is not going to make the same dent that two guys can, just for moral support. I think spiritual support and encouragement between the two guys. It gives you something to lean on. And I think the old way was, I'm married, I have my family I can lean on. And it doesn't work that way, because they've got their own battles. They're trying to acclimate to a new area, and the two-guy church plant has been our model ever since.
As we got here, and Aaron and I actually came ahead of our wives. They stayed and got my kids through school, and Kelly had to finish her job. And Aaron and I, one day, we go down to the computer store. We didn't have a computer, and we were talking with this guy about buying a computer that we thought we might need. And he stops and he goes, "My name's Ed, and are you guys pastors?" And I said, "Yep, we're going to be planting a church." And he said, "I have a question for you. I have some questions about the Bible." And he was having problems in his marriage. And so he agreed to meet afterwards at the Sherry's that was right across the parking lot. And he ended up being the first baptism we had at the Coeur d'Alene River. And it seemed like everywhere we went, we were running into non-Christians. One of the things that we did during that time was, again, we started in a small group, and then it went to 2 small groups, and the 3, and so on. But I still remember we used to meet at the Ross's house. And it got so big that when we'd bring our leadership team together and our group together, we wouldn't be able to stay in the house anymore. We would have to go into the backyard. Well, then it grew so much in the backyard that then we had to put the kids in the front yard, along the street, because we were really safety conscious, and we would be in the backyard. We called ourselves the Backyard Gang. We would have our Bible studies, our leadership meetings. We would sing together. Jimmy started coming in at that point with his guitar, and Jimmy and Kelly and Aaron, and we were playing. It was like church camp in the backyard, and then we'd eat together. And that group played such a huge part back then as we rolled forward.
There was this group of 10 families, and we really did meet as a small group. And we would meet here in our backyard. Jim would do a small lesson of some sort. We would have worship songs together. The kids actually played in the front yard. We hired a gal to babysit for us. There was a lot of little kids. And we would just sit back here and, again, eat meals together, have a message from Jim, have worship together, and really get to know each other and begin to trust one another and share our passion for the Lord, and that we felt like we were to plant a church, whatever it was going to look like. And really, in that life group, in that home group, in that small group, bonds became to happen that were so deep. To this day, I would say any of those families, if they needed help, we would be there for one another. Just a lot of trust that grew there.
And the fun thing about, as we were the backyard gang and getting to know each other, I think about 90% of the group that were coming, we all had summer birthdays. And we wanted to honor them. I mean, most people had come, they didn't have family or friends. So it was like, oh yeah, let's get together for Carter's birthday, or oh, let's get together for Kelly's birthday, or oh, let's get together for, and so we didn't know what God was doing in all of that, bringing us together. He was building us up as a family, not just a group of people coming together with a common interest, but that we loved each other and, we were able to be real with each other.
When we first in the backyard, most of the people were about our same age, and we had kids about the same time, and it was just more of friendship, and we did everything together. I mean, Jim and Aaron and those guys came in from out of town. Some other, like Wismers, came in from out of town. I mean, Wigdons were from north. I mean, we brought all these people in from out of town, and so we were all sort of new and getting to know each other. And it was just, everything we did to get things together, just like, I guess, like in the early days.
Yeah.
When we first started meeting, it was fun because it was very like family, and it reminded me of basically small church fun, and we had a ball. A lot of the kids were the same age, and it was fun, but it was a short season because Jim and Aaron hadn't moved there yet, and once they moved here to Coeur d'Alene, they had to get going, and because they were on a time clock, and I got that, and so it was fun to meet, but the pressure was on once they got here to launch and actually be a viable church.
We started looking for a place to meet. We couldn't find a place to meet for the weekend services. I remember we only had so much money, and we were running out of it. We had to have something for offices or something. And so we're driving around, and we're on Celtice one day, and we see this old house with this old shop that was empty. And there was a logging company back then and named Sean Monty Logging, and they owned this property, but no one was living in this house. So we just prayed about it and went in and said, hey, we don't have a lot of money, but we're planting a church, and I see the building's empty. Would you want to rent it to us? And this tough guy said, absolutely. And he gave us like a killer deal. And so now we had a house. It was a really old house. And a shop that wasn't being used. We turned the upstairs into an office. Now I had a place for Jimmy Harris to actually live in the basement.
Yep. We had just graduated from Bible college and got married a week after that. And 2 weeks later, we drove from my home in Ohio all the way to Idaho to start helping with this church that, was in a backyard, folding chairs, 20, 30 people in a backyard. So it was crazy.
I can't believe you went with me. Because I mean, can you imagine? It was almost like for our honeymoon, we're camping across the United States in a U-Haul.
We camped. That's true.
I mean,
about that.
I can't believe you stayed married to me. And after dragging you into church planting and away from family. And I know for you, it was a huge sacrifice to leave Ohio and your family. And it was a big risk. And I think that for us, it felt, I think for me, it was really exciting. And you came with me anyways. But really, I knew that I wanted to be a part of what God was doing, and I was excited to see what would happen. And I really do believe that God led us there and made a way, even though we didn't know what we were doing or how we were going to get there or what we were going to do for money. We knew that God would take care of us. What was my first job was it Applebee's?
I think so.
started working at Applebee's. And
we had a lot of different little jobs.
We stayed at the Ross's house for about a week.
I think it was about a week, yeah.
And then we went into the office's basement. It was a little cinder block cube that we lived in. It also housed the working restroom. So if people were in the upstairs offices, they could come down and use the restroom down there.
We turned the upstairs into an office, and Aaron and I, who are not carpenters, decided we were going to turn the shop into our place where we would meet in a larger group. So we'd start doing our Bible studies and our membership classes there at this property. And I tell you what, the job we did fixing that shop up, I would not say that it was fixing it up. It was the joke of everybody. It didn't have heat. It didn't have a toilet that worked, but we turned that into our offices. And I still remember that building later on. Our offices for the first 2 years were in that building. And you'd go in and you couldn't use the toilet, it would freeze. And there's no heat in the building. And so we've got our hats on and our gloves on with our little computers. But it was an amazing place to give us a start. We started with nothing.
We met in the garage area, the shop, for church. Yep, we had to redo that. Poor Jim and Aaron about killed each other trying to put walls up and take them down. And we would all get so excited when a car would drive up because it was somebody besides the 10 families that had been meeting in the backyard. And it was like the poor people, we would just, there's somebody new! We'd meet them, love them to death.
Yeah, when we were renting we called the Little Brown House on Celtice, when we were renting those facilities, I remember the helping greet, and I really didn't enjoy greeting, but we were so excited. So there you are at the door, and a car would pull in, and it was like, oh, there's somebody here, and the brown buildings, we did call them the ugly brown buildings. They just were. Jim and Aaron had done as much as they could do to make them presentable. But yeah, I think God allowed us to have humble beginnings so that, again, we look back from where we came from to where He's brought us. And you think about the church backgrounds that we came from. We had quite a plethora, and that because Jim's super good at being a visionary and bringing people together on what are essentials, and the rest of the stuff can just go by the wayside.
My dad was a minister up in Sandpoint First Christian Church for 20 years, my first 20 years of my life. And so I only knew Sandpoint, and I knew that church product. And every time the phone rang, rotary phone, you had the potential of somebody's in the church had some kind of a crisis, and then my dad would leave and he would handle it. And so the congregation was about 400 people, and my dad was the shepherd and the people were the sheep. And I thought that worked, but I noticed that the people themselves weren't really growing in Christ because they didn't have an opportunity to grow, and it was a very spectator model. And I feel like church in America was that. That was the Western mindset, maybe even at the time, was we hire this guy and he stands up in front of us. And we sit here and we show up on a Sunday, we do our job, we show up, and then we, give that guy money. And if we're not happy with that guy, if he says something to us personally or we're offended, then we move and get a new guy. And, the church has really had a hard time growing because it was all based on what the guy was on stage and what the guy was on Sunday. And when Jim came, and in fact, it was the first thing he said the first night I met him was, church in America doesn't work. And, he talked about the stats of why it didn't work, which are all true. And I was living proof of that. And, he talked about something else, whatever that was, you know. I was curious. I hadn't seen it, but I wanted to see it.
You know, when we would get together, we would talk about what we wanted the church to look like as we grew. We wanted to make sure that we were always thinking in terms of not becoming a clique where people couldn't get in. And we started laying out the vision and mission of our church, that we were going to reach the world. We were going to go get these people and not wait for them to come to us. At the same time, when we did reach them, we were going to disciple them. We were called to make disciples, not converts. And we were going to do that the way Jesus had done it, in small groups. So not only were we going to reach people and go wider, but we were going to go deeper as the Lord brought people. We started to go, okay, how should we word our language, you know? How should we talk about defining terms? As a wrestling coach, I knew if I were to call out a move that I wanted the kid to do, but he didn't understand that move or define it the same way, that wasn't helpful. In football, if you didn't get together in a huddle and call the plays so that everybody understood their role and there's a common language, then it didn't matter how, you weren't going to win at the line of scrimmage. And so what does it look like to be aligned biblically, say here's where we're at, philosophically, here's the way we do it, relationally, we want to love each other well. How do we do this in a way that honors God? At the time, the big discussion was, you know, what do we name our church? And we came up with a whole bunch of different ideas together, but we kind of settled on this concept of Real Life Ministries. And our slogan at the time was, where Jesus and real life meet. So we're gonna talk about real things. We're gonna be real people. Remember, my upbringing was everybody's always fine. But my view after being in the church for all these years is nobody's fine all the time. So this whole fake game of being fine and nothing wrong, and I'll handle it myself, and I'll go to church, but I won't actually be the church, and I'll help somebody else, but I won't let them help me. All these things that I didn't see as biblical, we didn't see as biblical. We were going to be real.
And I think all of us really agreed with it because we wanted to be about real life. And that was really our heart and our passion the whole time, wasn't it? Is real life is messy and hard. And we need to be a group of people that love Jesus, that get to share about how hard it is, and that life needs to be real with each other and be a life group together where we can be real about all the stuff.
You know, we want people to come as they are and let Christ changing them, and not expect them to be perfect, I guess, is the heart behind it, is that you are on a journey with Jesus and you get to come as you are, and as you go, you're going to be changed.
And one of the verses that caught our attention is in 2 Corinthians 5. It says that we've been reconciled to God through Christ, and we've been given the ministry of reconciliation. This word ministry became a huge word for us. Everybody is saved from something, for something. We are all ministers of reconciliation, every one of us. It's not, I pay the pastor to do it. It's not, we gather and the paid players are on the stage. Every person is a minister. Wherever we work, live, and play. We're ministers in our community, we're ministers to one another, and we let people minister to us. So we came up with the name together, Real Life Ministries, where Jesus and real life meet. We wanted the unchurched person to go, what is that? What is a ministry? What does that mean? And we wanted the Christians to go, oh yeah, I'm a minister. I'm not a consumer. I'm not here to have my needs met all the time, and it's about what I like for music, and it's about it's my church. No, we minister to others because that's what a spiritually mature person does. And so they minister to God and to others, and they allow God to minister to them and others to minister to them as well. And so we came up with this together, and that became our vision. Reach the world for Jesus. Our mission is going to be that we're going to make biblical disciples. And as time went on, we refined that, clarified that more. But from the beginning, it's been, this is Jesus' church. We're on mission. with and for him. We're going to do it together. We all play a part. Our job is to make disciples, not converts. And we're going to do that best. Yes, there's a purpose for the weekend services, but everything funnels down into small groups where we do life together, where we grow, we support each other. Then together, we launch out into this community, and we've done that from the very beginning.
I think that his vision for church was so great. Even from the very beginning, we knew that he had a vision for regular people. He wanted to call it Real Life Ministries because he wanted people to be a part of it and to know that they weren't just going to church, that they were the church. And we were both just really drawn to that vision.
And I think that's what ministry is. I mean, ministry is just people, right? It's just people trying to follow God and be changed by him and be on mission with him. And I see that over and over and over again. You know, Jesus used regular people that didn't know what they were doing, and he even used us. And we're talking about a group of knuckleheads. That original crew was a bunch of knuckleheads, and God used them anyways.
The weird part about it is the people there were on the normal side of normal, but I think that group is a testament of what God was trying to do later, which is it's not about these people. It's not about the thing you think it is. You know, it's not the we didn't have a light bulb moment. We didn't have these people are just more talented than other people. They were the most normal people you could possibly get, me included. And but that proves a miracle, I think.
So I guess that was part of it, is none of us knew, but we were all willing to pray together, trust each other, obey, listen to the voice of God, and go on a journey that we really didn't know where it was going to take us, but we were willing to do it together.
It was just, it was a time where we did everything together. We did it in relationship. We served together. We worshiped together. We did life together in our life groups.
What I loved is how Jim and Aaron modeled and challenged us back then. We are going to love and serve all people.
And really early on too, it was one of those things where we wanted people to feel welcome. And some churches, you don't take coffee in anywhere, but it was like we got volunteers to help make coffee. We had to bring in the coffee urns, and people stood behind there. And a lot of times Saturday night was making cookies, because again, we wanted people to feel at home.
I just remember being so excited all the time about little things. Like I remember praying with Lydia about a coffee pot and being like, it would be so cool if we could have a coffee pot, and how God would just answer the little things like that, like he cared, and as time went on, he would just provide more and more. And anyway, it was pretty exciting to be a part of those beginning stages, but just like anything, it was hard work too. There was the loading things up and all the kids and childcare and the not having anybody to play music. I really, truly have been so blessed to be a part of this church, because we got to live that out with each other, and we got to see people's lives being changed because of it.
Our daughter at that time, Sophie, was born 2 years earlier. She had a lot of health problems, and we were just starting to get out of survival mode and surface into, maybe we're okay. Sophie built relationships with different people in the church. Marianne Bewley still has, she has this fantastic red hair, and Sophie was just immediately enamored with it. She was 2, and of course, she at that time her eyes didn't look right. I mean, you knew there was things not right with her. So many church people reached out and had a relationship with her. I mean, we just had a unique support system for Sophie for the first time.
As we started going through the summer, I remember we're, buying computers, and we got a place to meet now, and we're trying to get information out that we're actually starting this church, but it was really by word of mouth. And it was really people that had been disenfranchised from churches that were coming, or unbelievers altogether, and the numbers just kept growing. We're running out of money quicker than we had hoped. Trying to fix up that shop and renting the house and all of this that we were trying to do. We are garage sailing all summer long, going, okay, we don't have a building yet, but we're gonna have a building, and we don't have any equipment. And we get a phone call from this church that had closed down. And they called us and said, hey, we've got our storage units, and there's some stuff in there that you guys might be able to use. And so we went in, and they had an old sound system. And now we had our first sound system. I mean, it was old, but at least it turned on. We didn't have anything for showing music, and so we got an overhead projector. And so now we had something to show music with if we're gonna sing in church. They had old crayons. As we started to garage sale, we had all kinds of toys that we had to have for the children's ministry, and we started taking old lumber, and Dave and Laura Wismer had come. Dave and Lance and a bunch of guys started taking this old wood and putting it into tables. So they created our children's ministry tables with scrap wood, and they painted it blue. If you were to really think about it, we didn't have one thing really that a church would have told you needed to plant a church. I didn't know that churches were starting for $250,000 with multiple staff and all this equipment. I didn't know that's how churches were being planted. My dad had just done it with our family and very little money, and so I just thought that's how you did it. And if I were to say anything about that season, God did so many things, bringing the right people at the right time. What he did with Jimmy and Cassie, what he did with Roy. I mean, every step of the way, God was telling us the next step. And he was using what we had, because we were using what we had to the best of our ability. And we may not have had all the things that the church today says you need, but we did have the ability to follow Jesus's method and do life together and make disciples in small groups and make sure we were staying together in alignment, theologically, relationally, philosophically. And it was one of the most dynamic, life-changing times. But during this whole time, we could still not find a building to meet in. We had gone to the school district. They were really afraid if they opened it up to a nonprofit, they'd have to open it up to every nonprofit. So they'd made this deal that you could only use a school building for an event. And if you were gonna use it in any stretch of time, it could be no more than 6 months. And so we weren't gonna just start something in a school and then have nothing afterwards. Very little money was coming in. And one day, I'm going to visit a new family in the valley that I'd heard about. And it was gonna invite them to church, and I'm driving down the road, and off to the right there, it was a movie theater. And as I was driving by, I thought, I wonder if somebody's thought about a movie theater. And maybe that would work. And I pulled off. There was, the lights were all off. There was one car in the parking lot. And I remember thinking, nobody's here, but I'm gonna at least go knock on the door. So I get there, park, walk up to the door, just push, and it's open. And as I walk in, it's dark in their foyer area. There's all the candy and the counters over here, and then there's this big area, and then across the way, there's a light shining in the corner going up the stairs. And there's a woman sitting there, and she's crying. And she has her head in her hands, and so I come walking in, and she didn't hear me come in. And when I walk up, remember, it's dark, and I said, "Are you okay?" And it scared her to death, and then she scared me to death. And I said, I'm a pastor. just stopping by, wanted to talk to management. And I said, but what's going on? And I got to hear what was going on with her and pray with her. And through that, she accepted the Lord. And after that, we had our conversation. She said, why are you here? What do you want? And I said, well, we're trying to plant a church here, and we can't find any place to meet. And I drove by and I saw this, and I thought, well, maybe this would work. And she said, well, the owner isn't a Christian, but I think he may have gone to Promise Keepers once. But they're really struggling for money right now. The theater, has been struggling. Maybe I could talk to the owner. And I said, well, that would be awesome. And it was funny. Bob and Donna Gindin owned the theater at that time. And they were hurting for money. And so they said we had to be out by 11:30 if we were to use the building.
That week or the next week, my dad, who was not a believer at the time, calls me and says, hey, I just met this guy who wants to start a church in the movie theater my dad had built and was owning the movie theater. My dad wasn't a believer, and he was like, I don't know what to ask him. Can you come make sure he's not some weirdo?